As a rule of thumb, you will want to initialize your pointer to a value. And the default value that we do a lot of times in C, C++ is null. Null has a value of 0. A better way of writing this is to initialize C pointer to a value of nullptr, all lowercase. This nullptr is a new keyword introduced in C++ 11. It is meant as a replacement to null. This null pointer provides a type-safe pointer value representing an empty null pointer. Prior to C++ 11, one can also do integer I equals null, because null is simply an R value with a value of 0. So you can use it in the context of an integer as well as in a pointer type. This is very confusing because then you can literally pass either integer or an integer start, for example, to a function, and that function will not be able to determine whether one is the pointer versus the other. Therefore, C++ introduced a type-safe null pointer effective C++ 11. And this is illustrated in these two examples, where one function takes an integer pointer and the other one takes in an integer. When you call my function with the null, compiler doesn't know whether you're calling the first one or second one. By nullifying your integer variable with a null pointer, your compiler will be able to resolve this very easily. Remember, null, null, is 0. Therefore, it is an integer constant 0. While null pointer, ptr, is a PR value or R value of type null pointer underscore t, which is an integer literal that evaluates to 0. So there's a lot of context behind this. In some literatures, you can read more into it where they talk about these differences. When you invoke a function that takes in a pointer variable, you can invoke it with a null pointer or a variable that initializes to null pointer. Then you'll be able to invoke the appropriate function declaration at runtime. I'll recommend that whenever a pointer variable is initialized and you don't have a base value that you wish to initialize that pointer with, always use null pointer. This is so that later on you can always do if cptr equals null pointer as a type check to determine whether this C pointer has been used or not. Whenever a pointer variable having null pointer as is the value, you can safely assume that it is not being used. Otherwise, this pointer would have had a valid memory address associated with it at some point. This is a very useful placeholder for pointer variables because, as you know, a pointer variable could be reassigned. So it could have no pointer at some point, but then you will have valid memory addresses at another. So making use of null pointer to initialize your variables all the time as a best practices keep your code clean and safe. This completes the discussions of some of the properties associated with the pointers in C and C++.